Hello, I hope you all enjoyed the Super Bowl. I thought I would follow up with a quick episode to follow up on the one that I did last week, suggesting that you take a look at the way these two teams work in an aligned manner to be able to go and help them reach their goals. Last week, I specifically talked about the offensive lines and taken some time to see how they make adjustments, how they handle the different pressure. And if you did do that, you saw how the Kansas City Chief offensive line, with the injuries that I had mentioned to you, really didn't have enough success. They broke under the pressure, didn't have the resilience to be able to go and push through the great Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense. However, I'd like to focus in on one key aspect that really hit me, that I heard from Tony Romo, the color analyst there, on alignment and most specifically creativity, communication, best practices, and then empowerment and accountability. In the second quarter, Tony Romo mentioned how in the first 12 weeks of the season, Tampa Bay had a 7-5 record. Not by any stretch of the imagination Super Bowl worthy, right? That time, after the 12th game, they had their bye week. And in that bye week, they took the time to be able to go and assess all the different things that they had tried in the previous 12 games. Because if you recall, Tom Brady was new. Rob Gronkowski was new. They had new people they brought on both sides of the ball, and they needed to try and mesh, find out what they could do. They were okay with making mistakes. They were okay experimenting, seeing what was going on, knowing that they were going to be able to go and assess what worked, what didn't, and be able to push the last 5 weeks of the season and the playoffs to be able to go and drive what worked best. So in that 2-week span, they looked at all the film. They communicated with one another and said, we looked creatively at what we could do. Here's what worked. Here are the best practices for us on offense especially. And then they let Tom Brady and that team loose, empowered them to be able to go and drive at the best practices that they developed. What ensued was a perfect record afterwards. 5-0 in the regular season, playoff victory after playoff victory, and eventually a marvelously dominant Super Bowl win. So look at this from the perspective of your organization. How are you empowering your people to be able to go and try new things, to make mistakes, to be okay with possibly losing some games, some battles, in the quest to find out the best practices for you? And then having those open and honest conversations on what those best practices are. Gain agreement, empower the staff, and they hold themselves and each other accountable to be able to go and drive towards perfection. Only because they made mistakes and failed beforehand. They were open to the growth mindset, knowing they were going to face some bumps in the road early on as a team that was still trying to go and find themselves with all the new pieces. Kind of mind-blowing, isn't it, when you think about that journey and how that journey could be your journey. Take a look at where you are. Are you making enough creative mistakes with the goal of figuring out what works best? Are you having open and honest conversations, not accusatory or blaming conversations, to be able to go and come to the essence of what works? What can go and drive success in the mission? And then, are you allowing those people the space, the encouragement, the empowerment to be able to go and strive towards that mission and drive towards ultimate success? If you're not quite there, what could be there? What could happen for you to be able to go and reach that point with your teams, with your leaders? Have a think about that. If you have some questions, give me a ring. Send me an email. Put some feedback here on the post, and we can have that type of conversation and see where you're at and where you could be. Short episode here today. Thank you so much for being a part of it. Glad to have you along. Have yourself a great rest of the week. We'll talk to you soon. Cheers.